The CEO of OpenAI, company responsible for creating artificial intelligence chatbot ChatGPT, said, and I quote, "Regulations of AI is essential." Sam Altman was testifying before a US Senate committee about the possibilities and pitfalls of the new technology. Now, Altman said he supported regulatory guardrails for the technology that would enable the benefits of artificial intelligence while minimizing the harms. He also spoke about the impact of AI that AI could have on economy, including the likelihood that AI technology could replace some jobs, leading to layoffs in certain fields. Now, Altman added that he is very optimistic about how great the job future will be. Joining me at this point in time is Shashi Shekhar Vempati, who's the former CEO of Prasar, Bharti. Also joining us is Nandan Mishra, who's the founder of Algo8. With me is my colleague Amit Ranjan here in the studio. But I'm going to come to you first, Mr. Vempati. It appears that AI now, at this juncture where we are in advanced conversation, AI is being implemented and in possibly every sector, from technology to IT to, we also often talk about how it's going to take away our jobs as journalists. But for the first time, there are fears around AI and the call and need for regulation.
Yeah, so I think what has really changed, because AI has been around for some time, and we were all consuming AI in different ways without really being conscious about it, right? Be it your YouTube recommendation algorithms, the Netflix recommendations, the ads that got served up on your mobile devices, and so on. What has really changed in the last 6 months is generative AI, and the exponential speed with which generative AI has become so much more smarter and better. And that has kind of created this entire buzz and, of course, the anxieties around it. But still, it has, several ways to go, because AI out of the box, as even Sam Altman in his remarks to the US Senate mentions, it is good at tasks, but it's not really good at, taking over jobs, because generative AI has its limitations, especially you want to do anything which is factual. You realize that, it makes up stuff, it makes up fiction, because these algorithms, these models are designed to create, text, and so they're not, designed with accuracy in mind. They are designed with being creative in mind.
Okay.
So that is a big difference, and hence regulations. Yes, there is a place for it, and I think perhaps the EU is a little further ahead down the road than the US and other countries. But I think we are still a certain distance away to go. I think at this stage, it's perhaps a lot more innovation, to a lot more learning, and at some point, of course, you'll have meaningful regulations coming in as well.
Okay. Okay. Before I go to Nandan, I would like to come to Amit here. Amit, there seems to be a call for regulation. I want to understand, what did Altman say? We understand he was appearing before the US Senate committee talking about the pitfalls with AI. But what was his entire contention? What were his arguments?
His big argument was that AI has the potential of going wrong, and not just going wrong, going very wrong. So that is the crux of what he wanted to say, that there have to be very stringent laws. Because if it goes wrong, you do not know how wrong it can go, because it is sourcing its information from almost everything that is available online. So that is the crux of it, and that is why there are laws needed, and there should be laws that should make it easier for people to sue OpenAI, because there are more cases that are filed against OpenAI. The laws will broaden themselves that much more. Right now, we do not know what all AI can do. So the more cases there are, people are able to file against OpenAI, the more laws will be enacted across the board. So that is the imperative thing that needs to be done right now.
Okay. Nandan, I want to come to you at this point in time, someone who's very, very active in the AI space. What sort of laws are we looking at? What sort of regulations are we looking at? We understand it has to be country specific, and there has to be some amount of self-regulation as well. But in India specifically, because that's where we operate, that's where you are operating, you've founded a company, Algo8 AI. What sort of laws are we looking at as far as compliance with existing laws is concerned, and regulation for AI specifically?
See, if you look at Sam Altman's comments and whatever he said to the US Senate and whatever he's asking for, see, in the end, once the technology becomes powerful enough, you have to be responsible about using it. And E, laws have to come in which have to safeguard the ones who don't have the access to it, or create a safe access to the technology. If you look at AI, especially generative AI, there are two major hazards that are there. One is basically disinformation. So by disinformation, I mean information that doesn't exist being brought to you, information being generated from sources which are not should not be accessed by everyone or not fit for you. And second is basically, of course, the jobs. So a lot of workflows will be automated, and it's not going to exactly replace all the jobs, but what you needed three people to do something, you would need one. And this is, I'm saying, for even very complex jobs like even data science, which we do. So AI is going to even not only eat up jobs which are mundane, but also jobs like data scientists who actually created that AI. Even that will be taken up. Okay. So if you look at the uh, if you look at the type of laws that have to come in, one would be definitely the access to licenses. So when, for example, a particular artificial intelligence has to be consumed by the masses, or has to be consumed, say, through a media, it can be a social media, it can be a media house, it can be an internet of things, whatever, wherever some information is being consumed, there will have to be a license that somebody has to go through, and somebody will certify whether this is shareable or not, whether the content through this should be accessible to everyone or not. Now
Okay.
there we'll have to have a very democratized access to getting such things certified, because the challenge is that, okay, the Googles and the Facebooks of the world would be able to get those certifications, but a lot of open source labs have to be involved. See, whatever you see today as ChatGPT came out in 2017 with a group of researchers. Actually, it was Wadhwani et al. And these people who basically built the first paper out of it. And that's where, AI today you see ChatGPT 5 is. So we cannot kill the open source potential of AI, but at the same time
Right.
we have to safeguard the access
No,
to AI.
absolutely. And we understand that. And in fact, the first sort of a proper law that could be a template or could serve as a template for AI laws across countries, industries, would be the Union AI Act,
Yes.
the AI Act
Yes.
that has been proposed by EU at this point in time, which assigns AI usage to three risk categories. And I'll quickly mention them. One, systems that create an unacceptable risk, which will be banned. B, systems that are high risk, that will be regulated. And C, other applications which are left unregulated. Let's talk us through the systems that create unacceptable risks, Nandan.
So unacceptable risks would be, for example, think of it like this: that already we have got a policy called the National Critical Infrastructure Policy in India, which basically, for example, there is a lot of data that is being generated and through the power grids that we have, or the data that we have in our huge operations of our plants, refineries, nuclear plants. Now, this data should not be firstly put on the cloud. Okay, this data should not be made open. So there are policies of housing this data in safe infrastructure. So even if the AI is being trained on this, it will be trained and housed within the systems. I'm in fact involved in a lot of such PSUs companies where such critical infrastructure is being now AI is being used for such critical infrastructure. So
Okay.
at any given risk, this
Are we
cannot
are
be
we are we
brought out.
talking about putting the data on AI, or and are we also talking about AI application
No,
for
no, both
sensitive,
the things, both the
okay,
things. So it is,
for
see, for
sensitive
example,
tech
think
and
of this.
sensitive
Yeah,
applications, right?
yeah. For example, think of this way, that suppose P series has made a song, and that song became a hit, and I made those that data available to generative AI, and now it came up with 20 new songs which are as big a hit. Now T series has to regulate that data, whether that data should be made available to AI or not. So that is the part of regulation of data. What data should be exposed to AI and what should not be exposed. The second part is what AI should be exposed to whom. For example, think about it that, okay, there might be certain information and knowledge which should be restricted from such certain segments of the society. For example, certain things should not be available post 18. So how do we do that? That is the second category, that
Right.
content
Can
generated
you
through
give
AI.
us, yes, can you please give us some example of what data should not be exposed to AI at all?
Oh, as I told you, yeah, data coming in from your critical infrastructures, be it your power grids, be it your refineries, be it your huge these plants are actually, these are very, very critical infrastructure. So no data of this should be exposed to any AI on the cloud. This is
Okay.
firstly, that will be a big battle, because the cloud players want to access that, and that should be totally not allowed. That's something there. Number one.
Okay,
Number
Nandan,
two,
let me bring
data.
in Mr.
Good.
Vempati also into this conversation.
Sure,
Sir,
sure, sure.
in India-specific parlance, we understand that various countries are, of course, looking at regulating AI in their own ways, but European Union AI Act serves there as a template to what could be an AI regulation. An interesting three categories that it has devised, and we were talking, of course, about the systems that create an unacceptable risks and data that should not be exposed to AI at all. In Indian context, sir, how important is a legislation like this? Number one. Number two, what sort of data do you think that AI should be protected from, or should never be on AI, should never be exposed to AI at all?
Yeah. So from an India standpoint, I think legislation is perhaps a little premature. It's early days. In fact, even the minister said something similar a couple of days back as well. However, I think there is a concern. If you look at all these large language models that are out there, be it ChatGPT or be it Bard and so on, the manner in which they have been trained on Indian content, Indian languages, I think is a matter of concern. We need to take a close look at that. And I think that goes back to your previous speaker's comments, that there has to be transparency on what kind of training data has gone into these models. So from an India standpoint, that would be something that I would be concerned about. Second is, we don't want Indian innovation to be disadvantaged. So we would want our startups to be on an equal footing. So to that extent, our interventions should be less about restriction, but more about how do we catch up, how do we close the gap, and how do we create competitive and compelling AI technologies from India. So that would be, I think, the second focus.
Okay.
Third, in terms of your question of what data should not be exposed, of course, anything which causes harm, right? It could be around defense technology, weapon systems, the critical infrastructure that the gentleman spoke about. So those would be the kinds of things that you would definitely want to restrict. But I think our concern is perhaps less on that front and more on the fact that we have a lot of catching up to do. We have a lot of innovation that needs to happen, which is India centric, and I think our government's intervention should be from that standpoint. That how do we close the gap, and how do we ensure that there are large Indian language models that are rooted in Indian content, Indian context, and the manner in which these big models that are out there have been trained on India, I think is something that requires transparency.
Okay. Before I go to my colleague Amit here, I want to understand from you, where do we stand as far as large language models in India is concerned?
That's a great question. I think one is, there is this initiative Bhashini, which is championed by MIT, and there is Bharat, AI initiative at IIT Madras. So all of them are looking at India-centric language models. Also, I believe the government is soon going to come up with a big Indian AI initiative where they will open up data sets and so on. I think that's on the annual. So perhaps very soon we'll get a glimpse of where we stand and what is the distance we need to cover from an India standpoint.
Okay, we will of course be keeping an eye on that. Amit, what are the concerns that Silicon Valley has at this point in time, with AI? And we talked about some of these concerns broadly, but if you could run us through the specifics of these concerns, please.
Taking on from what Mr. Vempati said, India is far behind, but the global concerns are a little bit bigger because they've gone ahead, and most of those concerns are directed towards China, given the current climate of hostility. China has been investing very, very big on AI and couple that with basically quantum computing. So there is a potential of what they call crossing the red lines. One red line is basically enabling AI for attacks against satellites, space satellites. Second one is giving access of AI towards nuclear architecture. Now, I mean, you can let your imagination run wild and have images of Chernobyl coming back. The risks remain unexplored. Even right now, only US has said that they are restricting the giving access of AI to target, in military, to target human targets on its own. This only US has said. Who is to say somebody, let's say a North Korea, gives that access? And once things run wild, like I'll go back to Sam Altman's quote, if they go wrong, they can go very, very wrong.
Absolutely.
So that is the second one. Third one is, of course, we have already talked about that deepfake imagery and spreading disinformation. That's the lesser part. Fourth thing is using your weaponry, making AI use your weaponry against yourself, your own people. And that is where quantum computing comes in, which disguises itself. You can't detect it. And that is what China is investing maximum into. So if you do not know that you are being snooped and basically snooped into, and somebody is basically using your system remotely, then you do not know what is happening to your system. And let's say tomorrow, worst case scenario, you press the trigger and the trigger goes somewhere else because somebody else is taking aim. So these are the big military concerns. India is way far behind because we haven't reached that though. So like I said, most of these concerns globally are directed towards China.
Okay.
Because they're investing so much and you don't know how big the ambitions of China are.
Okay. So, Nandan, what kind of investment are we looking at? Because, Mr. Vempati suggested that we're soon going to have a large language model emerging from India. Government is also very, very keen on tapping into this growing market. But as far as advancements is concerned, I remember speaking to you about 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we were still at an initial stage. We were still discussing, ChatGPT kind of momentum that it's picking up. But we're far, far ahead now. We're talking about regulations. We're talking about the repercussions of letting AI run wild without proper, some sort of regulations in place or some sort of, stoppages in place. What are we looking at as far as advancements is concerned at this point in time? It's only been about 4-5 months now.
You see, it's also an opportunistic move by the CEO of OpenAI. I'll be very frank, because what has happened is that now, since the power of AI is kind of demonstrated, and everybody is vouching to build applications and business models on top of it, they want only selective companies and an oligopoly to operate. And that is where they would want a Microsoft, Google, OpenAI to basically lead that. And one of the major harms of bringing in these these restrictions would be killing the open source innovation that has resulted in what we are seeing today.
Okay.
So I feel that since they have a significant advantage, they want that access to be, they want to build a moat around it. So one of the other perspectives around seeking regulations now is also that I'm saying it here. So that is also there, and sooner or later we will realize that people are trying to build a new age economy and new age business models on top of it. So that is definitely going to happen. In terms of investment, just think of it. So of course, the government of India understands the potential. So today, as we speak, the government of India, through its Department of Science and Technology, already has invested $500 million in building 25 hubs of AI across the country. So we have that. And we have the Ministry of Electronics Information Technology as well.
Absolutely. So money's been set aside, money likely to be spent in the course of coming few months, and developments are happening at a very, very fast pace in the AI space. Shashi Shekhar Vempati, Nandan, Mishra, thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining with your inputs.